Hey guys, it's Tony Milo with the Fantasy Football Ins and Outs podcast. This is going to be a podcast that I will be uploading weekly, and I will also be uploading a few videos throughout the week, not just this. So make sure to check out the channel, and let's get right into the video. And today we're going to start off with the injury report for week 1, and Miles Sanders just got announced as out for this week against the Washington football team. That's a big deal because he was picked in most leagues in the first or second round, so he should be back next week. But you should be looking to pick up Boston Scott maybe for a potential replacement in those points, and he could have a decent game. So there should be a huge increase in carries for Boston Scott, and honestly, he could be a big factor this week. So Sanders is out for this week. Make sure you check your lineups. Another big name that has been floating around in injuries is Mike Evans. He has yet another hamstring problem, and I don't know if he's going to be good to go tomorrow. He'll be a game time decision, so be watching that. But even if he plays, he won't be 100%, so he has a huge risk of re-aggravating that hamstring injury, and he's going to be a risky play for week 1, so I'd be careful with that. Another big receiver injury is Kenny Golladay. He's been downgraded to doubtful and most likely won't play tomorrow. It may be a game time decision, but I would be ready to bench him because he's probably going to miss this opener. Amendola could be a shout on the waivers for a potential replacement, but I would rather look at your bench. Another receiver that was on the injury report is Courtland Sutton. News broke that he could be questionable and maybe even out for the Broncos opener, and it's a big problem because he's the last game of the week on Monday night, so it's very, very risky to play him. And unless you have Jerry Jeudy on your team, I would recommend playing it safe and keep him on the bench just because he may not be playing. And if you have Jerry Jeudy, then you can keep him in your lineup and swap him out for Jerry Jeudy, who could be taking his touches if he does sit. David Montgomery is another player who was limited in practice throughout the week. However, he does look like he's going to play. I just don't think it's a great play if you have him on your team. It's risky. He has, a groin injury, and he most likely won't be 100%. And to be honest, he may not play. And if he does, it's not going to be a big game from him. And then big news blew today that Deebo Samuel is on the IR and he will not play until week 4. And fellow receiver Brandon Ayuk has some hamstring problems and may also miss tomorrow's game. Kittle should have a huge week. Also, look for someone like Kendrick Bourne or other 49ers receivers on the waiver wire for a potential good week. Boom and bust. Here's a segment where I'm going to be giving 2 or 3 players at each position a boom or bust rating for the week. And let's get right into this one. Booms. Quarterback Josh Allen. Now, Allen was great against the Jets in last year's opener. He finished with 19.96 points, which is basically 20 in the opener last year. Expect even more this year as the Jets lost Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams and CJ Mosley. And expect some running from Josh Allen as he had 10 carries against the Jets last season in the opener. Another boom quarterback is Russell Wilson. He's going up against a young and weak Falcons secondary, and he should put up some good numbers. He had 15.7 points against the Falcons in their matchup last year, so expect even more this time around. Bust QB's Kirk Cousins. He will be honestly handing the ball off a lot against the Packers tomorrow. The Packers' weakness is their run defense, so don't expect too much as they have a star running back in Dalvin Cook who they just paid, and they'll want to get him involved. He also lost his biggest deep threat in Stephon Diggs, so don't expect too much of a big week against the Packers. Another bust QB is Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G might not have the opener you wish for. Deebo Samuel is listed as out, and Brandon Ayuk is now listed as questionable. So an average receiving group takes yet another step down. So Garoppolo could lead on the run game in this one against the Cardinals. Don't expect too much from him. Running backs, boom, James Conner. James Conner took a step back last year, and he should start off strong this year. With the Monday night matchup against the Giants, Conner should enjoy an easy 15-plus points, or maybe even more. This Giants defense just isn't great, and Conner was way more effective when Big Ben was in the game, so expect a bit of a bounce back. Another running back boom, Josh Jacobs. He is projected over 15 points, but expect him to go off for more than 20 points against a weak Carolina defense. He should grab a touchdown with a decent amount of yardage as well. He'll show why he's a true running back 1 in this opener. And the last running back boom that I have is Derrick Henry. With Denver's injuries just piling up on the defensive line and the lack of training camp providing a lack of tackling, just expect Henry to go off. I mean, a lack of tackling against a guy who literally breaks so many tackles is just going to be a huge problem. And he should easily hit the 100-yard mark and add on a touchdown. Expect a huge game from Henry. Now, as it goes for busts, running back David Montgomery, with his injury concerns, will be a bust this week. I mean, we don't even know if he's 100% going to play, but if he does play, he probably won't have too many points, and you should probably think about benching him. And another bust is James White. He's a huge question mark. I mean, for week 1, with a new quarterback, sure, he worked with Tom Brady, but you don't know if he's going to work with Cam Newton. I would wait a week before taking a chance on this New England running back. And the last bust I have is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb will probably hit double-digit points, sure, but don't expect too much from him as he's facing a scary Ravens defense. If he slips into the end zone, it could be a very good week for him, but I just don't see too much points from him coming out of this game. Wide receivers boom, Juju Smith-Schuster. With Big Ben back, Juju should shake off some of the bust labels from last year. He was way better when Big Ben was on the field at QB, and he should be great against a weak Giants secondary. Another big boom for this week is wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Expect a monster game from him as he just got a big contract, and it would prove he's worth that contract on Sunday night. He's going to be a huge factor in this game, and against a questionable cornerback group for the Cowboys, expect a decent amount of yards and 5 or more catches, me thinking around 8. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Now, this is only if Sutton doesn't play. Yes, I think Jeudy will be a decent option if Sutton is healthy, but if Sutton is out, expect a much bigger game. I'm thinking 5 to 8 catches for 60, 80 yards this week against the Titans. That's a big game for me, and just expect it if Sutton is out. Wide receiver T.Y. Hilton. With reports of a good relationship between Hilton and Rivers coming out, expect a big first game against a horrible Jaguars team. He should put up big points against a poor defense, and with a good relationship with Rivers, should get a good amount of targets. Bust receivers. Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper tends to shy away in road games, and I don't think it will be any different in the opener this week against the Rams. I mean, Ramsey will most likely be lining up against him most of the time, and it'll be a tough matchup on Sunday night. Honestly, it's going to be a rough game for him. And another guy I see having a bust week is Sterling Shepard. He may not be your starting receiver, but you may be thinking about him at a flex position, and I think against the Steelers defense, you shouldn't do it. It's just going to have a rough week, and honestly, I wouldn't play Shepard. Boom tight ends. George Kittle. Now expect him to have a huge game after Deebo Samuel was placed on IR and Brandon Ayuk is questionable. He should get so many more targets in the absence of Samuel. Just expect a monster game from Kittle. Another boom tight end is Darren Waller. Expect him to put up some good numbers against a weak Panthers team. Sure, his quarterback play isn't great, but I think Waller will have a big opening game. Bust tight ends. Rob Gronkowski, a.k.a. Gronk. Gronk has some hype building up around his name, but I don't trust him. I mean, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he will have some trouble getting some fantasy points. He's not the number 1 target anymore, and he honestly might not get more than 5 catches a game this whole season. So, with Evans being injured, there is a possibility of him being decent, but I just don't trust it. And the other bust tight end, Austin Hooper. In his debut, he would struggle against a very strong Ravens defense. Don't expect too much from Austin Hooper in his first game with the Browns. Defenses, boom, Bills. The Jets' offense isn't great, and the Bills have one of the best defenses in the league. Expect big things from the Bills' defense this week. And my bust defense is the Broncos. The Broncos have lost some key players, and expect a rough Monday night as they just won't be able to get to the quarterback that often, and Derrick Henry is going to run all over them. And now we're going to go into the sleeper segment. This is just, I'm going to give one player at each position that I think could have a big game and that's being slept on for this week. Quarterback, Big Ben. Big Ben could have a huge week against a poor Giants secondary. He's got some good weapons in Juju Smith, Deontay Johnson, and rookie receiver Claypool. It's tough for me to call him a boom or anything because we don't know exactly what Big Ben we're going to get after the injury, but expect a good game from him. Running back, Devin Singletary. Singletary owners have some fear that rookie Zach Moss will eat at his carries, but I do think Devin Singletary will have a big week 1 against the weak Jets defense. Wide receiver, DK Metcalf. Metcalf could have a huge opener against a young Falcons secondary. he could hit double-digit fantasy points in the opener, and honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised. Tight end, Hayden Hurst. We could see a huge opener from Hurst as Matt Ryan loves to throw to his tight ends. Don't expect too much, but I could see a touchdown for Hurst in the debut with maybe 13 fantasy points. It'll be a good game for him. And defenses, Eagles. The Eagles have some defensive struggles in the past, but I think they will be able to secure a good amount of fantasy points this week against a very bad Washington offense. And now for my top 5 must-watch games for Week 1. So, to start it off, Buccaneers at Saints. That's an easy one. This will be a good game to watch. The new-look Buccaneers as Tom Brady plays his first game for his new team, and they're facing one of the league's best teams, the Saints. It'll be a good test, and it'll be very interesting to watch, and expect Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, and Alvin Kamara to have huge fantasy games. Now, Cowboys at Rams is another game I'm going to be watching. This is a huge game because the Cowboys have a lot to prove on Sunday night. With sky-high expectations for the Cowboys, expect a good game. The Rams also look to prove themselves in their new stadium after losing a lot of stars this offseason. Dolphins at Patriots. Everyone has questioned how the Patriots will look without Tom Brady. Sure, this isn't the best testing game as the Dolphins are still rebuilding and stuff, but Cam Newton's debut should be very interesting to watch. Packers at Vikings. Aaron Rodgers seemed very angry this offseason after they selected Jordan Love in the first round. There's a lot of eyes on him and on this game as well. Let's see how he responds, and it's going to be very interesting to see the game and see how he plays, and I think he'll prove that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And the last one, Steelers at Giants. This one may be a little biased because I'm a Steelers fan, but as far as fantasy implications and stuff, this could be huge. We will see if Juju can bounce back, James Conner, and it's the return of Big Ben, and it's just going to be interesting to see. And now to end today's podcast, I'm going to be giving my crazy prediction for the week. These are probably going to be a little bit ridiculous from week to week, but even though they're unlikely, I'm still going to try to predict, and maybe, we hit on it a couple times. My crazy prediction for this week is both Drew Brees and Tom Brady will turn back time and both throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, we'll see if that actually happens. And make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week on the Fantasy Football In and Outs podcast.